Hi everyone, welcome to Friday live session with Ashani Yapa. I'm from Serious Migration. In this live session so far, I've been talking about Australian skilled migration. So we covered from what's an EOI, what's the point system, to what are the visa subclasses available. If you're interested in getting Australian skilled migration, either from within Australia or if you're offshore who has never been to Australia. So today is our last day to talk about skill migration. Today I'm going to be talking about Northern Territory, and also I will slowly start talking about subclass 482 employee nominated visa, just giving you an introduction, which is going to be our next series. I'm going to be covering everything you need to know in perspective of employers or employees to apply for subclass 482 sponsorship, nomination and visa. That is to bring people from overseas coming into Australia under work visa, or if you are already in Australia, already working for an employer, how to secure your visa through that employer. Right, let's look at Northern Territory. It's very interesting, their program. Again, they have a big program and quite easy to get the invitations if you're the right candidate. They do also expect you to be giving strong commitments to living in Northern Territory. It's one of their strict requirements. You have to sign a declaration to say that you're going to be living in the state. Last week I talked about ACT. They also have a similar a strict requirement. These regional states, they really want applicants to understand what they're getting into, where they're coming in, and also to give long-term commitments rather than just saying that, you know, we want the visa from the state and we are going to be leaving as soon as we get our visa granted. Right, so again, as with any state, there are you have to meet two set of requirements. One is the Home Affairs requirement. You need to be at a certain age. You need to have a skill assessment in a nominated occupation. You need to have your English, and you need to meet the minimum points, which is 65 points from the point test. So that is again same for Northern Territory. Apart from that, there are specific state criteria that you need to meet. Once you meet that, once you know that you are eligible, the process is for you to apply for an invitation under Skill Select. And they don't invite you directly from Skill Select. Once you lodge your Skill Select invitation, then you have to apply directly to the Northern Territory government and say you are interested, and then they will invite you through that. So the requirement is, if you are already in Australia, you cannot have any dependents living away from Northern Territory. So then you are not going to be eligible. So you and your dependents, if you're currently living in Australia, have to be in NT. And then if you or your dependents are currently on a student visa, so for example, let's say you came here to study in NT and you realize that you're eligible for skill migration, so you end up going and getting your English done, your skills assessment done, so now you're ready to apply for a invitation. Unfortunately, you can't do that. You have to wait until you finish your course of study and get to your 485, then only you will be eligible to lodge an expression of interest for skilled visa. And again, if you have already nominated by NT for subclass 489 or 491, then you are not eligible to lodge subclass 190. If you are outside of NT, the special requirements are, there are few streams. Number one is the priority stream. Number two is the family stream, and number three is the job offer stream. I'll quickly go through these streams and explain as well. So the priority occupation stream, that's a very interesting stream. You will get the visas and the invitations granted through priority processing as well, but you need to have occupation in the Northern Territory Offshore Migration Occupation List. So there is a special list with special occupations that they really need in NT, and that's categorized into a list. So you need to have an occupation in this list, and some of the occupations in this list has different work experience requirements. I'll actually quickly go through this list. It's an interesting list. I think it's good for you to understand what occupations that they need special work experience. So for example, accommodation and hospitality managers, accountants, pilots, air conditioning, refrigeration mechanics. So the list goes on. There are chefs, there are all sorts of engineers, bakers, bricklayers, building inspectors, cabinet makers, cablers, cafe restaurant managers, carpenters, chemical engineers, childcare center managers, chiropractors. But some occupation, for example, community art worker or conservation officer, so it clearly says it's only eligible for subclass 491. And also there are some occupations that I came across that needs you to have at least 3 years work experience. For example, accountant. So if your nominated occupation is accountant and if you are applying from offshore, you are eligible to apply, but you need to have at least 3 years post-qualification work experience before you can lodge an expression of interest. So that is one list. That's from A to F. I'll quickly go through the other occupations as well. It's taking a while. So the second list has gas fitters, general practitioners, gardeners, hairdressers, pharmacists, hotel motel managers, human resource. There are lots of ICT, account manager, analyst, ICT manager, project manager, ICT sales representative, interpreter, jeweler, jockey, livestock farmers, management consultants, manufacturers, marketing specialists, massage therapists, medical administrators to mechanical engineers, metal fabricators, middle school teacher, midwife. Again, there are mixed crop farmers, motor mechanics, motorcycle mechanics, neurosurgeons, nurses, obstetricians, occupational health advisors, occupational therapists, optometrists. So as I said, again, the list goes on and on. So these are the occupations that are highly needed in NT, and if you have one of these occupations, you can be eligible from offshore as long as you meet the requirement. I'll actually go through the last bit of the occupation list as well. There's pediatricians, panel beaters, pastry cook, a pathologist, pharmacy technician, a physiotherapy, plastic and reconstructive surgeons, plumbers, policy analysis, pressure welder, primary school teacher, printing machinist, production manager, property manager, psychologists, quantity surveyors, recreation officers, registered nurses. Then again there are whole heap of registered nurses in different sectors, which I will not actually go through them all. There's rehabilitation counselor, resident medical officer, residential care officer, retail pharmacist, roof tilers, a sheet metal trade, ship's master, shipwright, social professionals, social workers, software engineers, solicitors, solid plasterers, sound technicians, physicians, surgeons, survey, system administrators, system analyst, telecommunication line workers, university lecturers, a vehicle painter, veterinarian, welfare center manager, welfare workers, wall and floor tilers. So as you can see, this is a wide range of occupations. They have blue collar occupations and white collar occupations as well, trade occupations. So it's a wide range of occupations that are available for offshore people. So if you're offshore and thinking of coming to Australia, again, I would like to recommend NT. That's a great state, as long as you're willing to stay there for a while and sign a statement saying that you're going to stay. But keep in mind, though, some of these occupations, they're only available for subclass 491. You will only get invited for subclass 190 in some exceptional circumstances. So that's kind of it for NT skill migration priority stream. Let's quickly go through the family stream. So if you're again offshore and if you have a family member living in NT, you can be eligible under family stream. I'll quickly run through who are family members. So parents or grand or stepchild, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, nephew, niece, first cousin or grandparents. So if they're living in NT, if they've done so for at least 12 months, if they're Australian citizen or permanent resident, eligible New Zealanders, or if they're a 491 holder, 494 holder, 489 holder, or other permanent visa holders, and you can then be eligible to apply for subclass 190 or 491 based on family migration to NT. Again, they have to sign a stat deck saying that they are supporting and willing to help with your migration, and they know you and they help with this application. The last one is the NT job offer stream. So if you can secure a valid job offer, verified job offer in a company that's operating in NT who's willing to give you a job in your field, and if that company has to have operated in NT for at least 12 months, then and you fulfill all the other requirements, you can be eligible under NT job offer stream. So there are the 3 streams available for NT for offshore, and if you're onshore, then you have to be, and you and your dependents have to be living in NT to be eligible for 190 or 491. It's very straightforward. As I said, if you're the right candidate, if you're eligible, it is pretty easy to get an invitation from NT, given the fact that you are willing to stay in the state for a while. So I think that's it for our skilled migration segment of our Friday Live. So this is the end of that, and I'll quickly go through the employer-sponsored visa review, and then I'll answer any questions if there's any. Then I would highly recommend you to ask me lots of questions. If you're in doubt about anything, please type your question in our YouTube, Facebook, or are we on TikTok as well? TikTok, so please type in your questions at the end of, so I'll be talking for another 10 minutes or so about employer nominated visa, and after that I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Right, so what's employer nominated visa? Employer nominated visa again has a few subclasses. Actually, I'll also bring in the training visa under this employer nominated as well, because it again needs an employer and a nomination from an employer. So I guess the first visa subclass is subclass 407 training, and the second one is subclass 482. A lot of people are aware of the second one, and everybody calls it as TSS. Before subclass 482 came into effect, it was the subclass 457. It's no longer available for new applications. So the next one is subclass 482. And then the permanent visa option, which is subclass 186. And the last one is subclass 494, which is again subclass 482, but it's the regional version. So all these visas needs an employer, an Australian company, doesn't have to be Australian, a company who's running their operations or who's running their business in Australia. So that business wants you to come and perform your employment from Australia. So that is the initial eligibility of this visa application. And then business also needs to meet some criteria. So practically the business has to first apply for something called SBS, or the standard business sponsorship. Business has to prove that it's legally operating in Australia and it's got all the licenses and registration that's normal business needs, and it is intending to bring overseas people. So as long as the business can meet this criteria, they can become a standard business sponsor. The visa application is quite straightforward, takes a few weeks or less to get processed these days. And once you become a standard business sponsor, this sponsorship is valid for 5 years. And you can sponsor as many number of applicants as your business needs, given that it is practical. So the second stage is applying for a nomination. So what's a nomination? Nomination is to say that, okay, my business has these needs for for example, for an accountant. And they need to prove that they advertise the position for at least 28 days. So this advertisement also confuses people a lot. So next week I will go through this in detail and I will explain what is the requirement of this labor market. We call this labor market testing. Right now the requirement is for you to place 3 job advertisements on 3 different mediums, including the Australian government website Workforce Australia, for at least 28 days. So people ask, okay, if we are already working for the employer, do we still need to do LMT? Yes. So this labor market testing, or this process, is called LMT. Putting the job advertisement is just a part of the process of nomination, which is the part that takes the longest because you have to keep it for 28 days. After the 28 days, we need to generate a report, or the business need to generate a report proving that they cannot find local labor. That is why they are trying to bring this person from overseas, or they are trying to get this person who's here on a temporary visa coming onto the 482, because they cannot find a local person or an Australian person to fill this position. So that is the basic idea behind labor market testing. Why they do that is they want to make sure that people don't just bring in foreigners so they can just pay them less wages rather than hiring Australians. So the government wants to make sure that is not why the business is going through this process of hiring people. So once we do the labor market testing, we can prove easily that they tried but they could not find local labor. But in most cases, for most employers that we are dealing with, that is the case. They've been trying not only for 28 days, for 6 months, for a year, trying to find employees. I recently had a chat with a lady who was she was hiring some bakers, and she said, we've been operating this business for 6 years and we've been trying for 6 years to find the right bakers, and we are not successful in doing so. So this demand is actually genuine in most cases, but by doing LMT we can prove that. Right, so that is nomination. So once you just part of nomination, LMT, and also you need to prove that, okay, we've done the LMT, we can't find local labor, because of that we are trying to nominate this overseas person and bring this person on board. So that is just the purpose behind nomination. We of course need many documentations to lodge the nomination visa application, but then that is what we are trying to prove in the nomination stage. And also nomination stage, they want to make sure this person is qualified, the candidate is qualified, have the right qualifications and work experience, and also this is a genuine position, again the business needs. So labor market testing also sort of prove that the position is genuinely needed for the business. And we use other documentations and evidence to prove that this position is genuinely needed. So that is the nomination stage. And the last stage is the visa application. So for the visa application, we don't need too many documents from the employer. This is just done with the migration agent and the applicant. We put the applicant's documents together and we lodge the visa application. Once these 3 applications comes together, that's when the 482 is complete, or the 186 or the 494, whichever the employment visa is complete. So we need employer side and employee side and the migration agent to work together to get this whole application completed. So that is the basic idea of 482. And within the next coming weeks, I will be breaking down each and every segment of the 482 sponsorship, nomination and visa application, and everything you need to know about to secure your employment and 482 visa. Or if you're an employer, what is your responsibility and your what you're looking at in bringing people to Australia, or securing the people who are already with you. So look forward to it, and we will start the first segment next week. If there are any questions, I will answer them now. My time's nearly running out. Mudita is asking, I am a SE and will be completing 10 years experience next month for ACS skill assessment. So he's a software engineer for ACS skill assessment, is it okay to lodge the application this month or should I wait till next month? I need to claim 8 plus experience for 15 points. When ACS do the assessment, what is the end date of the current job? Application lodgement date or service letter mention date? So when you lodge the ACS, normally they look at when you actually lodge the application. So that's if you're still working in the same occupation, it could be when you lodge your application. But if you want to claim 8 plus years, I think you can get it now, because you already have 10 years, 9 plus years. Even if ACS takes 1 year off, you still have 8 plus years. So I think you are okay to go and get your skills assessment lodged anytime. If you need help with the skills assessment, or if you need help with any other visa, you can get in touch with us. Our email address is admin@cirrus.com.au, or you can call us 1300 074 878. We'll be happy to help you. I think Dennis is asking, please, is there any visa program for subsidiary protection resident permit holders in Germany? So there are no special visas available for you to relocate to Australia, but if you want to get Australian protection visa, then you can apply for that. But there is no special visa that's available for you. I think that's all the questions. Thank you so much for listening in. I'll see you next week, and we will talk about employer-nominated visas. I'll just quickly read one last question. Lisa is asking, is there age limit for healthcare worker, and is IELTS academic or general, and the score? So there is the age limit is 45, IELTS general, and the score is 5.5. So I hope answered that question. Again, thank you so much for listening in. I will see you next week to talk about employer-nominated visas. Stay safe.